Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started. Hey everybody, good evening. How are you? Welcome to Hidden Horror. How are you for a Tuesday? So much has been happening, and I typically don't try to do videos during the week because I'm so busy, but I said, you know what? This is really breaking news. I'm sure you have seen, I'm sure you have heard. And again, I'm just here to report what is out, what everybody should have already heard about, which is Sean Combs. He has been indicted. They have charged him with 3 counts, and I'm here to just briefly talk about it. It's not anything new. I told you guys, remember when I went over the raids, the simultaneous raids, the raids that were in Los Angeles, California, as well as Miami, Florida at the same time? I said, listen, they're preparing a case. We heard a lot of rumblings over the last couple of months. People kept saying, this person is sitting before the grand jury. This person is testifying at the grand jury. What does all of this information lead to, right? It leads to an indictment, which is going to lead to an arrest and charges being brought. We could take, for example, Cassie Ventura's lawsuit. If you read her lawsuit, especially I would say the last 6 to 8 pages, those were criminal allegations. That's laying everything out. And what did I tell you? I'm going to share my screen because I've already shared this before, but I'm going to do it. When everything was happening, I kind of said, listen, these are the possible charges. This is back probably, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 months ago. I don't remember how long ago it was, but I said, these are the victims. Now, of course, there's additional victims now. We knew about Cassie, Cassandra Ventura. We knew about Joy Dickerson. We had an unknown woman. That was one of the cases. We had a second unknown woman. Then we had we have now Don Richard, her case, or Don Richard, her case. We have Little Rod. We have what's that other one? Crystal McKinney. I think we have the case out of the state of Michigan with Mr. Smith. His name is hyphenated. I can't remember his first name right now, but we also have his case. But those were the potential victims that have brought cases, civil lawsuits. I think there's about 10 cases now. I'm not sure. I just stopped counting. But then I gave you a list of potential co-defendants, people that they had named in these lawsuits that they said they caused these injuries to them. And then also because a lot of these cases involve Mr. Combs' businesses, then you're going to look at, what about the employees? What about the staff? What about the personnel, the assistants, anybody on the management team, security guard? All of these people could potentially be accomplices / witnesses. The problem with a lot of the information, besides Little Rod's case, all of these allegations primarily are past the statute of limitations, meaning those crimes cannot be pursued criminally because they're past the statute of limitations, typically in a state action. So if he's being investigated federally, and again, this indictment was by a federal grand jury, then that's going to be possibly potentially different federal charges. These charges are going to be under Title 18 of the United States Code, not state charges. So then you have to look at what are the potential charges. And I just kind of gave you a list of possible offenses that he could be charged with, from conspiracy, from the RICO to the trafficking, all kind of charges. You can see it here. We talked about this before. Please check out that video if you are interested, because I clearly could see this coming because I read the lawsuits. I took the time, I read the lawsuits. You can see within the interwoven of the lawsuits, the criminal allegations being laid out for these states, and a possible prosecutor picking up the ball, doing these interviews, gathering whatever evidence they can. And now, what do we have? We have a federal grand jury indictment of Mr. Combs, which, in all honesty, I'm sure him and his legal staff, they saw this coming. They may have been kind of warned that this was coming, not to maybe leave the state or not to try to do anything that would be suspicious. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. My article is coming from apnews.com. It's dated September 16, 2024. It's titled Sean Diddy Combs is arrested in New York after federal indictment. It's by Andrew Dalton, Michael R. Sizak, and Larry Neumeister. Sean Diddy Combs, the hip-hop mogul who has faced a stream of allegations by women accusing him of sexual assault, was arrested late Monday in New York after he was indicted by a federal grand jury. The indictment was sealed and details of the charges were immediately announced by prosecutors, but the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, Damian Williams, confirmed in a statement that federal agents had Combs in custody. So let me just kind of like filter this out a little bit more. Mr. Combs, he was in New York. I'm not sure if this was arranged, but it sounds like an arranged surrender. So the media would not pick up the photographs of Mr. Combs walking in and turning himself in. It sounds like this was probably arranged, that he would surrender and come in and be arrested without the eye of the media. This would have been very sensational, would have been an event to see and to watch. So I'm assuming he came from his home from Florida to New York, to Manhattan, surrendered. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm just using my common sense. You know, he is a high profile defendant. So they're going to want to provide him with some protection. Okay. Now they're saying that the indictment was sealed. So initially the indictment was sealed, but it was unsealed today. So now we can see what are the charges. And I do want to just say that, and if you want to put a comment, I will read comments today. I do want to say that they charged him with 3 charges. Initially, when I was up late last night and kind of catching this information, I didn't move on it because this was alleged. A lot of other creators, they were right on it. They were up, they were doing it. I said, no, let me wait, let me see. I want to be accurate, but I did anticipate that there would probably be, and this is in my description that you can see probably on YouTube and Facebook, that there would be probably a conspiracy charge. That's a very, as I told you before, a very low level charge, easy to prove. Just 2 people conspiring to commit a crime. It would have to be a federal crime. And then I thought, well, all of these lawsuits, they really purported and alleged that there was some S trafficking, drugging, some S abuse, potentially hiring S workers. So I said there may be a trafficking charge because typically that's what you're going to see. You're going to see some type of trafficking charge in a federal case like this. And then I pondered in my video in the past about a RICO charge. Now, typically you would see RICO charges in the past that dealt primarily with like mob activity, because you're demonstrating a criminal enterprise. You're demonstrating the inner workings, how people are working together, structured in a business sense to commit crimes, activity, criminal activity. So, how do you apply this RICO charge where you don't have like drugs involved, something like that? But there is criminal activity in a organized form. Well, what is the focus? So if the focus is not drugs, then what is the focus? It is the S word, S trafficking, right? So with that being said, I think they're going to build this RICO case on all of the civil lawsuits, all of the victims, and also slash witnesses that can demonstrate that there was a organization, a group, a functioning structure that allowed this FS trafficking to go on, this S abuse, the hiring of the S workers, etc. And that's why a lot of my charges, when I listed them, besides like the charges of like torture, um, the conspiracy, what's some of my other charges? The wire fraud potentially, coercion, force, things like that. The other charges related to S type of criminal activity like abuse, the trafficking, the forcible rape, et cetera, assault, battery, exploitation, et cetera. So that's what's going to be under the umbrella for the RICO. You don't have a drug enterprise. You actually have built out, allegedly, a functioning, organized criminal activity involving uh, S activity, S crimes. Okay, so yeah, that's what I anticipated. I anticipated those three charges when I posted and set up my video because the indictment was still sealed. So I just used my common sense and I referred to the past civil cases. I haven't got to the Don Richard case yet, because I had turned my attention to the Cardero Smith case out of the state of Michigan, where I'm still going to do that video. I actually set up that video, and of course, we have this going on with the arrest, but I still want to talk about the Cardero Smith case because, again, Mr. Combs is saying he never met him, and that all of this allegations that he has set up has been fabricated, and they do provide some information. They go back to court, I believe, tomorrow, September 18th. Um, I'm not sure what's going to be happening with that case, but I do want to go over and kind of demonstrate to you what was shown in court and what was said in court. And I have two videos for that. So that should be interesting, on top of now following this arrest and then the prosecution of Mr. Combs. But let's get back to the article. Um, We expect to move to unseal the indictment in the morning and will have more to say at that time, Williams said in a statement. Combs was arrested in a Manhattan hotel lobby, according to a person familiar with the arrest who spoke with the Associated Press on condition of anonymity, because they were not authorized to speak publicly. His lawyer, Mark Anafilo, said Combs had been cooperating with the investigation and had relocated to New York last week in anticipation of charges being brought. So let me just say this. They're saying that Mr. Combs was cooperating with the investigation. I guess he can say that, but I don't think the federal authorities, they were trying to get assistance from him. I know when they did the raids, there was some upset about how the raids were handled and how the police presence was so strong, and how allegedly Mr. Combs' people that were present for the raids were treated. So I'm not sure if now them putting forth that he's cooperating with the investigation. Um, I think most of their investigation efforts were probably to talk to and gain evidence from victims, people that were highlighted in the civil lawsuits, and also any other sources. Because what typically happens, you can get anonymous sources, you can get tips, you can get people that don't want to come forward but may have some valid um, evidence or information that can be used. So I don't know what that is really trying to say, other than just generally saying he cooperated, because I'm sure they were looking outside of Mr. Combs during the investigation to build this case against him. But okay, so they're saying he came back to New York. He anticipated the charges, so there was some communication going on, again, potentially informing him that this indictment is coming or you have been indicted and we're going to effectuate the arrest. And I'm sure to not have him handcuffed, walked into the courtroom, well, not the courtroom, but the jail and all of that, that was done to keep it out of the media. Now, will he show up in a suit each time he goes to court? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to give him a bond. Um, he has a passport, so I would probably think they're going to have him surrender his passport and no bond. Um, I haven't looked into the charges yet, or I haven't even got that far because I also have to do uh, update on the second attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. So I haven't had a chance to look into this further because I've been busy. I've been so busy today. But I'm guessing they're going to have surrender your passport and also no bail, because by him being well, he used to be a billionaire allegedly, but let's say by him being a high earner, someone that has accumulated millions of dollars, he probably could post some type of bail. So I think in this case, they probably will do no bail. And it also depends on what they charged him with. And I guess what angle is it coming from? And also, you always have to think too, there may be additional charges as they move forward. There's a lot of victims allegedly. There's a lot of potential crimes. And depending on what crimes they're going to focus on, there could also be some co-defendants. Who was involved? Again, I showed you, you had people in the industry, you had people that were staff, personal assistants, you had security guards that were in the know that saw what happened. Did they prevent what happened? Did they ever report to the police? Did they assist in allegedly this type of activity, the forcing? If there was, like, for example, a kidnapping charge, were you not letting someone leave and things like that? So all of that is going to be considered if there's going to be some co-defendants, or are these potential accomplices, are they going to go and create some type of deal where they're not prosecuted if they testify against Mr. Combs? I guess that can be considered also, and they can be turned into a witness. I don't know, because this is just the beginning steps in the case, okay? So let's continue. We are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution of Mr. Combs by the U.S. Attorney's Office, Agni Philo said, describing his client as a music icon and a loving family man. Now, I'm just going to take a pause to this, and I really didn't want to, take a lot of this on today, because I'm kind of squeezing it in. But I do want to address what is probably on everybody's mind. You read the lawsuits. It was in black and white. He denied it. He categorically said that he did not do this. Well, when the video was released, that violent video showing the attack of Mrs. Cassandra, Cassie Ventura, uh, uh, I can't even put it into words. Um, I don't know how he can purport that he has this image of a family man, a loving man. He put his hands on her. He was violent with her. He was aggressive. He attacked her. He physically assaulted her. The mask is off. The mask is off at this point. You came out with a follow up saying that you were sorry and that you never apologized to her. Cassie Ventura, Cassandra Ventura, you never apologized to her as the victim, but you did say that you regretted it, and you were kind of like in therapy working on yourself. And maybe that is true. However, it's hard for statements like what the attorney is saying to hit, because there's still lawsuits being filed. This is not a one act type of situation. Like, there was an incident, I apologize and this will never happen again. It appears to be, and this is where I said, this RICO charge, this continuing enterprise, this organized crime that involved this S abuse, S assault, S trafficking, exploitation, paid sex workers, etc. This was a lifestyle. This was something that was very norm within the music industry, where he managed this. He was um, a mogul. He was the icon. He was the person, the gatekeeper in a sense. And when the attorney comes out and purports that, you're saying that this person people looked up to, they did. They looked up to him. They wanted advice from him. He was respected. People in the music industry could go to him. They wanted to be within his circle. They wanted that shine. They wanted the acknowledgement. They wanted to be able to partnership and work and all of that. But as we see, it was a very dark place, a very dark industry, and people had to do things to exist within that. And some of them were hurt. Some of them didn't know what was happening to them. And some of them, I believe, compromised their morals for fame. And I don't even think we're touching the surface of the number of victims, because some of these people are not going to come out. They're not going to come forward for whatever reason. I think it could explode if these alleged tapes are to be released in some way. I think this could really hurt some people that maybe don't want to be found out or publicly exposed. I think this is a lot bigger than what we think, what we know. And I also feel like this was a targeted takedown. And what I'm saying is, I think at some point there was a break in the relationships that Sean Combs had with major people in the industry. And it was somehow agreed upon that he was going to be taken down. He's going to take responsibility for this thing. But I think many people were involved, many huge industry pillars were involved. And I don't know if more of the names are going to come out publicly, not just accusations, allegations, evidence to demonstrate who all was involved. because I honestly feel like there may be some overlapping with the music industry and also television. I know that some people kind of cross the line, they're an actor and they're also a rapper, for example, or artist. So I think this is a lot bigger than we think, and I think something imbalanced the hierarchy, the power structure, and it was decided that now Sean Combs, he's out. We're taking him down. We're removing him. And there's been, for the last year, consistently, about a year, there's been efforts to do such that. And now we have an indictment. Um, I feel like you have people that are also major players that didn't get this. Um, I'm not going to specifically identify anyone, but they were just as famous. And this didn't happen to them. They were not prosecuted. They were not publicly, releasing lawsuit after lawsuit. There was still some protection for them. So I hope that that comes out so that we can have justice for all involved, not just this one particular person, but for the others too that was in this network, destroying lives, people. Um, this did a lot of harm, a lot of damage. And we can say that a person is a great, but I always tell people never elevate anybody. Anybody else, they're human just like you, and you really don't know them. You know the image, their iconic status, what they done, but you don't know these people as human beings. You got to look deeper than that, okay? So anyway, let's continue. In the statement, he is an imperfect person, but he is not a criminal. Agni Philo said in a statement, adding, "Please reserve your judgment until you have all the facts. These are the acts of an innocent man with nothing to hide, and he looks forward to clearing his name in court." Um, I don't want to take apart the statement so much, but these allegations, they cover a lot of different areas. For example, they have some allegations about a car explosion and that was a threat that was made. Do we know that Mr. Combs did it? Can they prove it, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know. But then you look at other things where they have allegations that maybe he was involved in some homicides. Do I know that he did it? Was I there? No, I do not. So it's not just a um, sex trafficking case, sexual abuse case. It's other areas too. It's with the arson, for example. It's with the conspiracy to have someone killed and they get killed. And then you have, other charges, the drugging, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So many different categories. That's why I really felt the RICO would be the right way to go in this case, because of how people were working together in an organized way in this criminal activity. So, yeah, let's continue on. The criminal charges are a major but not unexpected takedown of one of the most prominent producers and most famous names in the history of hip hop. The federal investigation of Combs 58 was revealed when Homeland Security investigations agents served simultaneous search warrants and raided Combs mansions in Los Angeles and Miami on March 25th. So we're almost fast forwarding 6 months, right? They took all these months. They wanted to do an investigation. They wanted to review the evidence that they were able to obtain and talk to any victims slash witnesses slash any tipsters, etc., that may have been involved or have knowledge of some of the pertinent questions in the case, right? They took about 6 months before this indictment. So when you say that, he doesn't have anything to hide and that, he's this prominent person, that is a fact. He is. He's a prominent musician, producer. He owned many Black businesses. He was held high in the public eye in the Black community. He was honored in New York. He had the key to the city. He had honorary doctorate degrees. His name was on a school. He had scholarships. I mean, the list really it goes on and on. How many band groups did he create? How many times was he involved as a musical genius in the hand of all of these various artists over the last 30 years, right? Since he was young in his 20s, he made a name, a place for himself in the record books. However, it still doesn't negate that all of these allegations, as long as he had built his career, they're saying go back to the beginning in the 90s, and he was involved in all of this over almost a 30-year span of time. So it still doesn't change the facts, right? Anyway, a day after the raids, his attorney, Aaron Dyer, called them a gross use of military level force, said the allegations were meritless. Combs, then known as Puff Daddy, was at the center of the East Coast, West Coast hip hop battles of the 1990s as the partner and producer of the notorious B.I.G., who was shot and killed in 1997. But like many of those who survived the era, his public image has softened with age into a genteel host of parties in Hollywood and the Hamptons, a fashion forward businessman, and a doting father who spoiled his kids, some of whom lost their mother in 2018. And let's just go here. There were rumblings when Kim Porter passed away. I don't know what happened to her. I never looked into it. I never had an interest in her. I never had an interest in Sean Combs. I just felt like, he was always just doing a lot. But he did have his clothing line. He had hit the market in multiple areas, from his TV show, from being an artist, from having his own record label. I mean, he did it all, right? He became a household name. He became beyond famous. Um, he was respected. He was very influential in music back in that era of the 1990s. Okay, I will never take that from him. But there's another side to him. Apparently, things that no one knew, a dark side, the public. Allegedly, we don't know this other side to Mr. Combs. We heard about it. We didn't experience it. We didn't see it because we always saw him being happy, having fun, you know, being with different entertainers, promoting their career, being on different songs. I mean, being on TV, just everywhere. Okay. But a different image began emerging in November when his former protege and girlfriend, the R&B singer Cassie, became the first of several people to sue him for sexual abuse, with stories of a steady stream of sex workers in drug-fueled settings where some of those involved were coerced or cajoled into sex. In her November lawsuit, Cassie alleged years of abuse, including beatings and rape. Her suit also alleged Combs engaged in sex trafficking by requiring her to engage in forced sexual acts in multiple jurisdictions, and by engaging in harboring and transportation of plaintiff for purposes of sex induced by force, fraud, or coercion. And the sad part about this, allegedly, because these acts were taped, they were shared, other people saw them, and this is a form of what I feel is, how can we go after these other people involved? It wasn't that this was moments shared between their interaction with her and her boyfriend. When you begin to broadcast, to share, who's on the other side of the network? Who are these people in the dark? where you are sharing these videos, these images, these pictures, there is, in my opinion, an injustice if we do not uncover those people, their names. That's where the injustice is, because he did not do this by himself. In my opinion, these are the same people now that are targeting him and taking him down. In my opinion, okay? Allegedly. Anyway, let's continue on. Um, it also said he compelled her to help him traffic male sex workers. Combs would force Cassie to have sex with while he filmed. The suit was settled the following day, but its reverberations would last far longer. Combs lost lingering allies, supporters, and those reserving judgment when CNN in May aired a leaked video of him punching Cassie, kicking her, and throwing her on the floor in a hotel hallway. I'm going to show you that video again. I'm sure it made its rounds. It's a horrible video. Yeah. How does one buy people? You know, how does one have the power to control others, to have things done for them? I don't know. Okay, so Rocco said, I read a lot. It was so bad. Victims had to have IV fluids to recover. It's unspeakable. It is. It's really sad. Okay, so the lawsuit was filed. Um, it was settled before I could even do a video. It was settled within a 1 day. So it was very quick. I guess he wanted to move on from it and settle. But people still read it. They found out, they uncovered the truth. The mask is off now. And now we're learning more and more as time goes on that we have repeated and similar acts, right? So let's continue in the article. The next day, in his first real acknowledgement of wrongdoing since the stream of allegations began, Combs posted a social media video apologizing, saying, I was disgusted when I did it, and I'm disgusted now. Cassie's lawsuit was followed by at least a half dozen others in the ensuing months. In February, a music producer filed a lawsuit alleging Combs coerced him to solicit prostitutes and pressure him to have sex with them. Another of Combs' accusers was a woman who said the rapper producer raped her 2 decades ago when she was 17. Another woman who filed a lawsuit, April Lampro, said she was a college student in 1994 when she met Combs, and a series of terrifying sexual encounters with Combs and those around him began that lasted for years. Combs and his attorney denied nearly all of the lawsuit allegations. While authorities did not publicly say that the lawsuit set off the criminal investigation, Dyer said when the warrants were served that the case was based on meritless accusations made in civil lawsuits. Um, I don't know. I think the civil lawsuits helped because they laid out criminal allegations. But I will say that for years, there had been some talks that um, there was some criminal activity going on with Mr. Combs, but it never moved any further. You never saw anything laid out in a civil lawsuit, but there were a lot of talks, especially when I was younger, that he was involved in some criminal activity. Okay. The AP does not typically name people who say they have been sexually abused unless they come forward publicly, as Cassie and Lampros did. As the founder of Bad Boy Records, Combs became one of the most influential hip hop producers and executives of the past 3 decades, along with the notorious B.I.G. He worked with a slew of top tier artists, including Mary J. Blige, Usher, Lil' Kim, Faith Evans, and 112. And that's just a short list. Combs rose in his businesses beyond music, including lucrative private label spirits, a media company, and the Sean John fashion line, took major hits when the allegations arose. The consequences were even greater when the leaked beating video emerged. Howard University cut ties with him, and he returned his key to the city of New York at the request of the mayor. Combs has faced various arrests before, and decades ago, he was at the center of one of the biggest hip hop industry trials of its era. The trial stemmed from a Manhattan nightclub shooting that injured three people in 1999. His then girlfriend, singer, and actor Jennifer Lopez was also there when the shots rang out. What would Jennifer Lopez have to say today? What does she know? What happened? Okay, anyway, Combs ultimately was acquitted of charges that he took an illegal gun into the club and tried to bribe his driver to take the fall for the weapon. His then protege, Shine, was convicted of assault and other charges in the shooting and served about 8 years in prison. Now going by Moses Barrow, he's a member of the House of Representatives in his native Belize. No comment. Also in 1999, Combs was arrested on a charge of beating up a record executive in New York. Combs pleaded guilty to harassment, which is a violation, and was sentenced to an anger management class. Well, did that class help him with his anger management? Because I've heard all kind of stories about Mr. Combs and his alleged violent acts. And again, a lot of these people haven't even come forward. They're not going to come forward. Most of them probably will never come forward. Anyway, I want to share one video with you going over the charges. So let me share my screen. Then we'll wrap this up. Please let me know if you have a comment. This video is by ABC News. It's titled Indictment Unsealed in Sean Diddy Combs Case. And it's about 8 minutes long.
Breaking news now. The indictment against Sean Diddy Combs has just been unsealed. Combs is being charged with racketeering conspiracy, alleging he ran an enterprise that he engaged in sex trafficking, forced labor, or kidnapping.
Okay, so they said racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. That's kind of like everything I covered. Okay. They followed those civil lawsuits, I think.
Kidnapping, arson, and other crimes. He's also charged.
They said arson also. Okay.
With sex trafficking by force. I want to bring in ABC's Phil Lipoff, ABC News contributor and SiriusXM radio host Mike Muse, and ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more. Phil, give us the details on this indictment.
So we're just looking through it right now. You hit the highlights, but right off the bat, they go through all of his all of the names that, because they have to do that in an indictment. They have to name all the names he's ever gone by. And then they talk about he relied on his employees and resources to influence the multifaceted business and what he would do. They allege that there were, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping. They allege arson, bribery, obstruction of justice. They go on to talk about how he would abuse women. They talk about kicking and punching and dragging and forcing them to have, they talked about highly coordinated sexual acts with male prostitutes. I mean, this is extensive. This seems to be everything that we have heard about in allegations. I haven't been through the entire thing yet. We're all looking through it. But so far, what I can tell just in the first couple of pages is most of the things they are alleging in this indictment we have heard about.
And Phil, I'm going to give you a chance to go through. I know I put you on the spot there, literally as we got that indictment now. Brian, walk me through legally. We've heard, did he deny these charges, these accusations really throughout? Now they're officially charges. His attorney also before the indictment said that he's an imperfect person, but that he's not a criminal, again, denying this. So what do you make of the fact that we're now seeing in black and white what the government is trying to charge him with?
Yeah, so Diana, it makes it a lot more interesting as to how to dissect this case. We have 3 charges. We have a racketeering charge, or what we often hear as RICO. The second count being, as Phil articulated, what we all thought might be there, the sex trafficking through force, fraud, or coercion, and then, of course, the transportation of prostitution. Now, those are the first initial charges. That could be more coming down the line, depending on how this investigation goes. But this is what we know so far. When it comes to these charges, we're looking at life in prison as a maximum for at least the second count and potentially the first as well. But also when it comes to RICO, how they're describing this enterprise as its way of promoting, enhancing, and protecting the brand, and that sex and sex trafficking was a part of it. We're going to see all the ugly and gruesome parts of bad boy entertainment that surround this alleged abuse in a way that I don't think many of us were prepared for.
Brian, can you talk about the degree to these charges? Because any kind of sexual abuse or sexual assault is bad enough, but it sounds like what they're describing is something that was really premeditated and coordinated.
Yeah, so when you're talking about RICO, you're talking about a criminal enterprise, and criminal enterprises can be anything. Oftentimes we associate RICO with like the mafia or things of that nature, money and violence. This seems to be more in line to, if you want to draw a comparison, to that of R. Kelly, where there was an organization within the music industry that kind of was part and parcel. They interacted with each other in a way that you couldn't see where the music started and the alleged abuse ended. That it's almost the trafficking and transporting of women for the pleasure, for increasing the brand, for potentially even, hey, we want to get a new artist. So you know what, we're going to traffic this girl that he might be interested in a way of attracting and keeping this artist in a way to grow the brand and make money off of it. They are alleging that it is so intertwined that it's almost business as usual to do this trafficking and transporting. And at least that's what I'm reading from the initial allegations in this indictment.
We think of Diddy, we think of the music, but his influence goes far beyond that. How significant is it to have charges of this magnitude against someone who is this powerful?
It's huge. And just kind of give context to what Phil and what Brian is talking about. Diane, is in the conversation that we were just having a few moments ago. What I'm looking at from this unsealed indictment, of course, we need to learn a little bit more, is it seems like Cassie was such a big part of this indictment. A lot of these indictments comes from the lawsuit and allegations that Cassie was actually discussing. In particular, you think about arson. I know people are probably wondering, where is the arson coming from? In Cassie's lawsuit, she alleged that Diddy threatened to blow up a current rapper Kid Cudi's car, to which Kid Cudi's car did blow up in an explosion, to which Kid Cudi then gave a statement and said that he can confirm that actually happened. I'm thinking that's where the reference of the arson comes from. I'm also thinking about the male prostitutes. Cassie alleges that during that time, Diddy would force her to look on the internet to solicit male prostitutes in order to engage in sexual activities. I'm assuming that is where the male prostitute dynamic is coming from. In terms of kidnapping, Cassie also has alleged in her lawsuit the forceful nature to which Sean Combs would remove her from events, from social settings, from gatherings, and keep her in essentially in housing in order to perform these activities. When it comes to the idea of the enterprise, to kind of translate that to what Brian Buckmeyer just said so eloquently, culturally, what Diddy was. Diddy was the kind of person where if you were in the music industry, you wanted to be around. If you were trying to make your mark as an A&R executive, if you were trying to make your mark in the marketing, if you were trying to make your mark in order to hang out with him, to go to his home in the white parties in the Hamptons, that's how much of a pull Diddy had. I cannot underscore how Diddy had this concept and this idea of the Midas touch. And Diane, being a part of the music industry, being around Diddy, being around those events, being at his home in the Hamptons, being at his home in Miami, I had firsthand accounts, not of these allegations, I didn't see any of that, but how desperate people were to be in his orbit. I can't underscore that enough. You think about the 40th birthday party that he had that I went to at Cipriani's. I mean, people, they had Mariah Carey, you had, I remember the royal family was invited. I can't remember if they attended or not, right? But you had those type of individuals wanting to be there, coming looming. You think about Diddy runs the city with marathons. This is a type of influence and pull that he had. And so when I think about the racketeering and the enterprise dynamic, it's just about people who wanted to be near him and who was willing to do anything for Diddy to give them affirmation and recognition.
And Phil, as you're going through that indictment, what is that anything? What sticks out to you?
Well, I mean, Mike laid it out. I just want to touch on one thing that you didn't, and this is the violence toward women. In this one section, it says, on multiple occasions from 2009 on, Combs assaulted women, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects, and kicking them. These assaults at times were witnessed, and then they go into the 2016 video that we saw of Cassie. So you're right, a lot of this stems from Cassie's allegations, but you see, I mean, they've got it laid out there.
And then Phil, to what you just mentioned too, in terms of the physical violence, not only is Cassie a part of this, but also too, the recent lawsuit that we saw from former Danny Kaine group member Dawn Richard. Dawn Richard also says she witnessed these violent acts too as well.
All right, Phil, Mike, Brian, thank you. Breaking news now, the indictment against Sean.
Okay, so got a couple of comments from Rocco. He said the Diddy case makes R. Kelly actions look minor. That speaks volumes. As of now, he's in federal custody. His attorney tomorrow, bail appeal. I don't think they're going to give him bail. I think he can make bail. He has a lot of powerful, wealthy, influential friends. So I don't think they're going to give him bail. And if they decide to, they probably will have him surrender his passport so that he does not travel internationally. He does reside in Florida. However, he may still have property in New York. I don't know. But if he were to be allowed to travel, it would definitely be to his home, where that would be in Miami, Florida. So I'm not sure. I would try to get some more details when he goes. I think he goes to court. Has he been arraigned already? I'm not even sure. I haven't even had time to really look into this case because, again, everything happened so fast. And then now I'm going to do my second video that I was not planning to do tonight. So I will bring you some more details as I'm able to catch up to his prosecution and his booking, and if they're going to offer him bail, things like that. I'll do an update, okay? So thank you for spending this time with me. I really, really appreciate it. Please let me know what you think about it all. Do you see this as justice? Do you think it's justice delayed? Do you feel that he should not be charged because it's been, decades, many, many years? Or do you feel that justice does not stop? The pursuit of justice doesn't stop, because that's how I feel. I feel that if you can get justice, even though it's delayed, you should still pursue it, because those victims, they deserve it. Their families, everything that they have gone through. And sometimes you just can't prosecute someone when you want to. Maybe you don't have the evidence. Maybe you don't have strong evidence, witnesses that are willing to testify. It's something about time. People change over time. Some people, they get better. Some people get worse. But for the most part, as time goes on in these type of criminal cases, it reveals itself, the things that were hidden. Again, that's hidden horror, right? Things that are hidden, they come to light later, many years later. So I am looking forward to seeing the prosecution of this case. I'm interested to know what happens with Mr. Combs, and also co-defendants. I don't think he did it alone. I don't think he got to where he ended up alone, because he started off, it was very humble beginnings. And he had to create a network, a social network, business ventures, working alone. Somebody mentored him, led him. This is a learned behavior. I think there's a whole industry of people just like Mr. Combs And again, I feel he was targeted as get him out of here. And every step in almost a 1 year period has been to that, which I don't disagree with. This is his demise, rightfully so, if these are truthful facts. However, I believe that other people involved, every person, business should be held accountable if they were involved. That's just my opinion. So thank you for spending this time with me. Please remember, stay safe, stay smart, stay savvy. Be well, all my friends. Have a good night. Bye, everybody.